on the way here from Spokane. I'd come around by the States because there's no way through in Canada in those days. And I got to Spokane, I felt better. And on the way up on the old Great Northern Railway, I got better and better. And I got off the train here, I felt like jumping over the coaches. I just felt that good, you know. I could breathe, you see. I got a job at the mine, firing the boilers. There were 3 big boilers there, and quite a few big, strong men couldn't make it, but I only weighed 120 pounds. I stuck it out, and I got my ticket there, my first ticket, first-class ticket. From then on, I've just, you know, worked around the mills and the mines around the Princeton district, you see. And after I came back from overseas, back at the coal mine here. And then I got the flu, and I was going to go down to South America with a sand drilling outfit working on the river down here, Guggenheim's they were. But I got the flu. I had to stay, they went and left me. Then there wasn't much doing around here, so I took a notion I'd go to Alberta. I won't tell you the reason I went there, but I went to Alberta and worked around the farms there, best whatever I could do, around tractors and so on, farm machinery, and I finally got married there. From my wife. Yeah. I came back to Princeton, first chance I got. I got a little money, come back to Princeton. We've been here ever since. We've been back on the prairie for 18 years or so. And we had a motel back there in Castor for several years. But this is my hometown, Princeton. We sold the motel and came back here. We've been here 3 years now. But previous to all this, when I came back with my wife, I went to work at the coal mine, and things were haywire there. They sunk a shaft down here where the school is now. The school around there, and played around there, fooled around, and wasn't doing very good. So I went to Allenby. Allenby was working, and I got a job there on the electric gang. And while I was there, they were subject to blackouts in the West Kootenai, the line coming all the way from Greenwood over the hills, you know, electrical storms and everything else, and other things would cut them off. And every time we had a blackout, they'd lose quite a lot of money, the stuff going down the tailings, you see, all the copper going down there and everything else. And I was on the electric gang there, and I kept telling them there that you should have your own power plant. See, I'm an engineer, you see, steam engineer. You should have your own power plant, build your own power plant, lots of coal, lots of water here, and to hell with the West Kootenai, make your own juice. I kept harping on this, and Man Smith was the metallurgist there. Later on he got a big job with the New York Cyanamid Corporation. I guess he's dead now, but he was a big shot back there in New York, in that country there. And he was very smart, and he brought this up at the mothers' meetings. Every Monday they had a mothers' meeting in the office there, you know, all the big bosses, you see. And Jack Ray said, you should have your own power plant, you see. I kept harping on this. Anyway, in '29 I left. Copper was going down in price, things didn't look too good, and I thought, well, I'm like a rat, I'll quit the sinking ship, you see. So I, I pulled out and went back to Alberta, Mom and I. Went back to the farm and played around there. And the following year they shut down, 1930. I came back after they shut down. Things were kind of quiet on the prairie too. And I came back here to work around the mine, the 9 Mile coal mine. I got a job there. But I was there, they shut down Allenby, what year was it? 1930, yeah. And about 5 years after, 1935, no, 6 years afterwards. Yeah, 6 years after, they'd been down 6 years. And I saw Lansing on the street in town here one day. He called me over to his car. He was used to be the superintendent of Allenby. He was still resident there, looking after like a watchman, you know. I said, yeah. He said, what you doing tonight? I said, nothing. I said, no, I'll bring your wife up for cocktail this afternoon. Okay. We went up there and he sprung it on me then. We're going to build your power plant. Your power plant. Yeah. So I got some figures from the consulting engineer in Vancouver, and which were way out. He wanted me to look them over and give them an idea that he'd told them that they'd get by with the load they had previously, the same load, about 75 tons of coal a day. Well, he didn't know anything about the local coal. I said, no, it'll take at least 150 tons of coal a day, this coal we have here, to supply that amount of power. Several things that they had all wrong. Anyway, we discussed it. He told me then, he said, well, he said, you might get a job doing construction or something, but I'll tell you this right now, we're going to have all college-trained men in the plant. It's going to be an up-to-date plant, and there'll be no sawmill or coal mine engineers there. They'll all be fully qualified men, you see. I don't know what he meant by that. But you know yourself that they finish, that's all we had here was local boys. Right? the last 10 years we were on the plant without any trouble with all local men there. Anyway, they built the plant. I was the first man hired on the job. But, was that much at the door?
Wind.
Yeah, we had the power plant. But it was a real headache in the beginning. They had these people from Vancouver that knew nothing about local conditions, and they couldn't do anything themselves. That everything had to go to a machine shop to be fixed. They couldn't do a thing themselves. They couldn't use any tools. And we had all second-hand junk to start with, and everything was breaking down, it wouldn't operate, and so on. And they fired the first chief engineer they had, and I don't mention his name. He was a college-trained man, first-class ticket, but he couldn't cut the mustard because he couldn't tie hay wire together. He couldn't do any scrounging. He couldn't, you know. He was a machine shop man, you see. And they let him go on. They put me in charge temporary, but they took my breath away. I tell you, I pretty had a heart attack when they come and told me that. I only had a second-class ticket then. But anyway, we pulled things up a little bit. And Watson came in. They got Watson, he was a first-class man. They worked for the Granby before. Fred Watson, he came in. Poor Fred. He ran into all kinds of trouble right from the start. And he got fired. It wasn't his fault. But he was fired. He was fired because the superintendent made a big blunder. And, you know, because he had no ticket to lose. And he always fired the chief engineer, you see. There was 24 engineers, chief engineers and shift engineers in the first 2 years fired. 24. I kept a little black book. I'll throw the whole thing away years ago now. Put everything down, you know. I wish I had it now. It'd be handy to look into it. 24.
So much.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Every time something didn't turn out right, fire the son of a bitch, fire the, you know, that's all they do was fire. I don't know how I hung on. I used to hide behind things, I guess.
Well, you knew your job. You knew how to make the best of it.
I used to anticipate trouble, and I'd find ways of avoiding it if I could. But
That's it.
I remember one time when Southern decided to get more efficiency out of the plant. I shouldn't mention names, but the superintendent decided to make the plant more efficient. We shut down number 1 boiler and run everything on number 2 boiler. It was a more efficient boiler. And they shut number 1 boiler down, which provided saturated steam, and they had no idea what the temperature was in number 2 boiler till they run by itself. And we had the steam pipes red hot. And we burnt number 3 turbine up. Burnt the blades out of it. 5,000 kVA turbine. But I saw it coming. Watson had just come on the job. He'd been there a few days, that's all. And I was standing by the machine. There were all the bosses there, all in front of the big boiler. There was even the insurance man was there, the Hartford, Connecticut insurance man. Whitey, his name was. And Shorty Stevens from Detroit, the combustion engineering expert, he was there to look after the boiler, you see. And of course, Yule and Southern were there, the superintendent. And there was somebody else there, some other big shot was there. And they were all there in front of the boiler. But the chief engineer wasn't there, Watson. He was busy doing something else, you see. And they shut number 1 boiler down, and in a few minutes the steam was so hot that it set fire to the floor by number 1 turbine. The steam pipe set fire to the floor, I saw a piece of 2x4 building on top of the base steam line below the control panel, and I said, I'm going to get out of here. So I said to Shenton, I'm going to Allenby. That's where I was foxy, you see. I'd have got fired too, probably, if I'd have been there. I don't know. But anyway, it didn't happen when I was there. I went up to Allenby. When I got to Allenby, of course, I had a job to go to. I had to get a piece of stuff to the machine shop there. And when I was up there, of course, everything was blacked out. There was no juice. Gone down. I came back to the plant, and here they had fire extinguishers all over the place around the machine there. They're putting the fires out. They all caught fire on the turbine, and it burned everything all up.
Let's think.
Oh, it was terrible, I'm telling you. You see, the man with authority had no steam ticket. He knew nothing about steam at all. You see? He was an electrician.
How many years did the power plant operate?
Pardon?
For how many years did the power plant operate?
We first had power on this in 1937. And I was hired in 29th of December 1936. I was the first number one on the payroll. And we started shoveling snow and to make a place to build an office or a cabin of some kind down there on the 2nd or 3rd of January. I'm not sure what Johnny Carlson and Lawrence LaValle and I and somebody else. There was 4 of us all together. And I think we had the first machine running around April, the end of April, somewhere around there. I was in charge of a temporary plant to start with there. We had put in a couple of small boilers there to provide heat and lights for the gang for working, you see. I was in charge of that. That was in 37, and it shut down in May 1957. I threw the switch to shut the whole thing down.
You threw the switch too. 20 years.
Yeah, I did.
When did Eastcott come?
He was there then. He came, let me see, he came around, what year would that be? He was there about 10 years. Must have been 47 when he came. He was a good man, and he made a lot of improvements to the plant. But he wasn't chief very long. Gorey was the superintendent when he came, and Gorey died. So he got Gorey's job, superintendent, and they made me the chief, you see. But Eastcott was the boss. He was an engineer too. He just not like the other fellows. He was just so together, the two of us, we were able to get the plant in shape. Because he understood, you see. He was a qualified first-class engineer. And he made a lot of improvements. I made some too.
Oh yes. I know you did a lot.
But
I think it's those boys outside.
Yeah.
Oh, there. Oh. Okay. Smell. It's okay. You can come in now. Excuse me. You're in front of you there.
Shut the tape off for a while.
Yeah, maybe we will.
I was talking about feed water, you know, as an old standby, it isn't quite correct, but among engineers, that every 10 degrees you raise the temperature of the feed water going to boil, they increase the efficiency 1%, overall efficiency. That only holds good in certain conditions. But anyway, we have had for years good feed water temperature, you see, 2-3 years. Well, one day, the studying engineer brought this man who used to be the superintendent, brought him back into the plant, trying to get him back in again. You see? I won't mention any names. I better not. And my office was in the plant. I had the chief's office in the plant, superintendent's office in the main office out by the railroad track. The phone rang, called me over to the office. I want you over here, Johnny. Very deep business going to transpire here. I went over there, and here I could see this consulting engineer. I knew him, you know, and our previous superintendent was there. And also Mr. Bailey, president of the company. And We shook hands around, of course. Now, get down to business, Mr. Bailey says, gentlemen, you say we're not operating the plant efficiently and it can be improved. You're not doing a good job, you people. Looking at Mr. Eastcott and me, you see, not doing a very good job. These men say they can improve the efficiency. And so Eastcott said, by how? What means? And Yule speaks up, and the consulting engineer speaks up and said, well, the feed water temperature, you were not keeping a good feed water temperature, you see. Well, Bailey says, did you have it better when you were here before? Oh yes. We mentioned some date. Well, I got up then and got the charts down. I had them hanging on the rods on the roof. Well, dozens of rods hanging there with all the charts on from the wall, you know, Bailey meter chart, record of all the goings on at the plant. What day do you specify? So and I got the date out and pulled the sheet out off the rod. And when he was there. No, that's one of since he left, you see. Good feed water temperature all the way to 24 hours, complete circle, 212 degrees, you see. Sometimes 213, a little bit above boiling because of pressure on too, you see, 2-3 pounds pressure. Well, that looks all right to me, Mr. Bailey said. Can you beat that? Well, when you were here, what dates can you mention? And he mentioned the dates. I put a sheet out for the coincide with the date they mentioned. Here, no temperature at all, down to almost lukewarm, back up to 150 degrees and down to 90 and up and so on, you see. Oh, well, that doesn't look too good. And you do any better than that? Well, I'll get another one. So they got another date, and they got 3 or 4 different dates. They couldn't find one where they had good feed water temperature. So Bailey turns around to him and says, what the hell kind of goddamn consulting engineer you turned out to be? Get the hell out of here, just like that, and they went out of the office. That's one of the highlights I've ever from the power plant. The time that they fired the consulting engineer. Yeah. Oh boy, we tickled. Oh gosh, he was a pain in the neck, that man.
He was.
Oh, when he was. Yeah. I remember the time they wanted to put #1 boiler back on. It had been down for quite a while during the winter. And they wanted to get #2 boiler off and put #1 boiler back on. They went to look into it and checked the water and found the boiler was full of ice. It had never been drained, and the induced draft fans on the other boilers were taking the air out of the building, you see, putting it through the furnaces, creating a suction on the building, and the air most came down to the smokestack of #1 boiler and through the setting. All wintry. And here the boiler was frozen solid.
That'd be a mess.
And the lower drum was split from end to end. I think the steel was 7/8 an inch thick. The sheet of the steel, the vertical part
That's
of the
pretty strong.
lower drum. And it was something like 14 feet long, and the 12-foot split in them, it was wide open.
Lord.
That's the only part that really was badly hurt. And so we had to get a new drum. Took all the tubes out. We get boilermakers in, of course, to do that. And cut the tubes off, make them shorter, so we had to put the drum higher and put the new drum in there. They got a new drum made. They couldn't find a sheet big enough anywhere in the west here. They finally got one from the CPR in Montreal. They'd gone in there, they got in for a locomotive or something, or, you know, and sent that down to Vancouver, had it rolled in Vancouver, and it was drilled and reamed for the tubes in Vancouver, and riveted. It wasn't welded, it was riveted. They used the same ends out of the other. That was some job, boys, oh boys. Fancy. Well, the engineer got fired for that. I guess one of the Harrison boys, I think it was George Harrison. He was the chief then. He got fired for that. Then his brother came to be chief after that, a brother of his. He was fired, I forget what he was fired for, but none of their troubles. It wasn't their fault. Because that boiler was frozen before Harrison came there, you see. before my time, before I didn't get in authority. I was back on the shift in those days. But you see, the Southern was, like this man was still, superintendent was still in there. He was in charge. You couldn't do a thing that you were told to do it. You got authority. You couldn't, in those days. Just imagine a boiler filled with ice. And then there was one time the same boiler, the number one boiler, we had quite a lot of blackouts, trouble, couldn't keep the steam up, couldn't carry the load, something was wrong, couldn't get the coal to feed or something. And there was a set of instructions typewritten out by the superintendent. And you must follow these, do these in the order, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on. But you are short of steam and require assistance, do this, number 1, number 2. And so Jack Huey was on shift one day and one night, and he had trouble. He couldn't hold the load, and he got to this instruction, number 1 was to phone Allenby, somebody Allenby there. When he phoned and phoned, couldn't get anybody answer, you see. And they spent half an hour doing that, and then he tried number 2 and so something else. Anyway, the upshot of it was that he was trying to hang on to the low, and the pressure was going down, and the steam flow was going up, because then it takes more steam at the low pressure to do the work. The governors opened up wider, and the flow got so high that the feed water pumps couldn't put the water in the boiler fast enough. And the water level went down in the boiler, and they burnt the tops of the tubes off. And then, of course, they blew into the fire and put the fire out. Because Jack was trying to follow the instruction exactly that you must do this, you must do that. That's the big shot's orders, you see. And Jack got fired, you see.
Yeah.
And he came down there losing his ticket over that too.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, the company put in a complaint that this man said shouldn't have happened. And anyway, there was quite a bit of manoeuvring going on. I helped a little bit with the inspector, and somebody else did. And Jack didn't lose his ticket, but he lost his job. And then finally, pressure was brought to bear to get him back in there. Boy, they were going to be hell upon him. Something wasn't done about it. They gave him a job firing the boiler after that. He was put back to fireman from engineer.
That's a shame.
Then eventually got back onto the engineer after the man went.
Sure.
You see. Yeah, just imagine. You must do this, do that, do that, and do that. And the first 2 of the things you couldn't do depended on somebody else. Phone somebody, get them to do something, you see. When you couldn't get them on the phone, there'd be nobody there.
People that didn't know what they were doing, giving orders.
How many men were employed at the power plant?
How many? Oh, there was, in the beginning during construction, there was as high as 300 men working around, out there, 3 shifts. That is altogether. During construction, that was the most we ever had there. Mostly 200. And then when we were operating there, in the beginning, we had as high as over 40 men operating. Just imagine. It's terrible. Pipe fitters and welders and carpenters and cement people.
What did it end with?
And then engineers and firemen and oilers and coalmen, handlers, ashmen. At the finish we only had, 4 men on the shift at the finish. 12 men operating. Well, there'll be more. There was 16 was 4 shifts, you see. 16 then. And probably 4 men on the day shift.
Oh, 4 shifts.
About 22 men altogether at the finish.
And then he got.
Well, counting, yeah.
Sure different.
The times when you can fire that number 1 boiler, first started out there, nobody knew how to fire this lignite coal. Instructions came from the manufacturer, the stoker, Harrington stoker people, how to do this and do that. It was all based on steam coal, you see.
Sure.
High quality bituminous coal or better. And we had a sub-lignite here, a sub-bituminous. Well, it was sub-lignite, some of it. A lot of rock in it too, but mostly moisture, inherent moisture. The coal wouldn't ignite, you see. It took so long to ignite to get stew the moisture out of it, to get it, not because it was wet, but the inherent moisture combined with other elements in the structure of the coal itself, you see. H2O. Anyway, we were going to use about half the grate, that's all we could use. Oh, there's the very finish, that's all we could ever use, that, just half the night for the grate. It took the full half to get the coal ignited before you could give it any air, you see. Because the setting wasn't put in properly for that kind of coal. They should have had an ignition arch right to the front, reflecting the heat to the front where the coal came in, to get the coal heated right from the start and ignited, you see. But they didn't have it, and I tried to get that done, but they never would do it. They were too much expense.
Did they try Blakeburn coal?
Oh yeah, we had it once, but never had a #1 boiler. Well, we did have Blakeburn coal later on. #1 boiler. We had #1 boiler on when the other ones are down, but it wasn't very often we used it.
It was good coal.
It wasn't. We didn't use Blakeburn coal then when the boiler was in operation because we were using Blakeburn rock off the rock dump. See, there were about 140,000 tons of discard stuff. The pickers taken off the picking tables at the coal mount from the picking tables there, and just pushed out on the flat there, rock and mixed with coal. See. Well, the Granby bought that, and we crushed it at the plant here, and quite a lot of coal in it, but a lot of rock too, you see, but it's way better than our local coal even then. Way better. More BTUs in the pound. We didn't mind that. It was awfully hard on the equipment because there was so much rock in it. It was very abrasive, you see. And
It was better than the coal we have here?
well, better than local coal, yeah.
It's steam coal, you see.
It's a steam coal, you see. I mean, it'll go as high as 7,000 or 8,000 BTUs to a pound. Well, our local coal, some from the black mine were getting there, and it went down to 3,000 BTUs in a pound. The best were about 5,000. That's from the Granby mine, the old black mine. But the Blakeburn coal, the good coal, would go as high as 11,000. But the rock we got would go between 7,000 and 8,000. Just the rock, the pickings. We did eventually get the strip mine. Denny Mullen and Associates opened up a strip mine at Blakeburn, and they hauled the coal right to the bunkers up here across the creek, across the river, by truck. That was good. That was real good. That was real good coal. That's before we shut down. We're getting that. That's the other way around. But the best coal we had was from Alberta. We got the Alberta steam coal from Alberta. They were from refuse dumps, the slack dumps, you see. They bought up quite a few old dumps there, but it's very wet. Well, it wasn't so awfully. It was not like Cassidy. But still it was full of moisture. But out in the open in the rain from the snow, you see. But we bought that and we mixed that with our local coal. That was good stuff, that. That went as high as 11,000, 12,000 BTUs.
Did the weather have any effect on how well your equipment worked? Like if it was really, really cold?
No, the only trouble with the winter time was the river. We used a lot of water. The condenser used a lot of water, and we had trouble with the ice in the river. I put in a flume to return the hot water from the condensers back to the intake, which helped quite a lot, but it didn't go very far, didn't go across the river. It just went to the air water came into the intakes there. Eventually I put the wind dam across the river, right, clear across, and left a bridge at the power plant side and put a bridge there so that the water comes through there, so it kept water closer. That was a big help. But then one day the river dried up.
In the winter?
Yeah, in the winter, yeah. We didn't know what had happened. We didn't
Ice jam about?
Big ice jam above Copper Mountain someplace. And we got one or two little tricks come in from then on up. It wasn't very much. It wasn't enough to keep us in water. Our condensers wasn't getting enough water, and of course they lose the vacuum, you see.
Was there always lots of water in the summer?
Oh yes, all we needed, yeah. Always. We just got, we started in, I had arranged to, in fact we got, the welder working on it, put a 20-inch connection, 20-inch diameter pipe from one of the circulating pumps out through the window, and we were running a pipeline up the river to return our hot water up the river. This returning line, why they found the ice jam. I got it dynamited and made lots of water, you know. We had hats in our mouth there for quite a while there.
Yes.
Then another big fiasco there was in 40, when the floods in 48, when the bridge went out
Oh, yes.
across to the power plant. I'll never forget that day. Anderson had a chicken farm up there, you know, and their chicken house came down the river that day, you see, and full of chickens too, flying out on the top of the roof and squawking and coming down the river, and it landed against these pilings on the bridge work there, the ports of the bridge, you see, and it took the whole works out.
Yeah.
It didn't take the bridge itself, the steel bridge, but it took out the approach, you see. The chicken house did that. They put the water pressure against the chicken house. It took the whole thing right. Then we had the rails then going down, I guess, close to the, I guess about 200 feet, I guess. And we got our supplies across from there. Oh, the bridge went out down here too. The road bridge went out at the same time. So the only connection we had, well, they could have gone around by Stirling Creek. I guess they didn't go around there from Almy, Cotton Mountain to get back to Princeton. They go around by Stirling Creek, down the old Headley Road. Mm-hmm. That bridge was built before that. The highway was built before that, you see. But luckily we had the locomotive was on our side, you see. They had a diesel there, and diesel locomotive then, and they just put in a tank car up at Allenby, diesel fuel for the locomotive, you see, to supply the locomotive. So we were all right. We had a locomotive, and they kept running. We ran the trains up and down the Copper Mountain. So we got our supplies across the river on that. We had a flat car and about 4 men pushing, running on these open ties, and the river down below them there. Down this and up the other side. You get barrels of gas and stuff across, and oil and stuff, you know.
I wouldn't have.
The Anderson Flasher outfit, they put a big drag line in the river there. They caused a lot of trouble too. They stirred up the river and got all these roots and stuff, with waterlogged roots and stuff in the river floating down into our intake and blocking up our turbine and plugging up the condensers and one thing or another. But we're glad when they got out of there. There was one time we had not a blackout, but brownout. We dumped quite a lot of the load. The voltage just dropped it up again. And we had a line going from the power plant up to the coal mine up here, this black mine up here, power line. And it went past the sawmill down here. We used to have a sawmill down, Lear had a sawmill down there. Yeah, well, I don't know who had the mill then, but they had been shut down for quite a while, and they were going to open up this mill, and there was 2 men working around there doing something. I don't know who they were. Nobody get to know their names, but they had been at the company to try and buy power for this mill from us, you see, for running this mill, and they couldn't get it, couldn't give it to them. And one day we had this brownout, and the breaker kicked out on this line going to the mine. So I set out to go along the line to see where and I got along where this, it goes past this sawmill here, and I see a piece of wire thrown over the power line, piece of wire. And I went on to as far as the tunnel. There was one of the section men working down there at the end of the tunnel, and I asked him, I said, he see anything or hear anything just recently, in the last half hour or so? Yeah, he said, I saw a big flash, I heard a big boom, he said. See these 2 men run away from me. But we couldn't prove it. I mean, then we all knew about it, but they couldn't have anything. It wasn't worth bothering about. But they came down and shutting the whole thing down. But the wire was hanging in 2 pieces, one on each line. They cut the wire, burnt the wire off, you see, but it was hanging in pieces there. They shorted one phase out. But that was retaliation with it, because they wouldn't give them the juice, you see.
where did that power plant supply the power to? Just to the,
Just a couple miles and Allenby.
like
Well,
to the houses or just to the
Oh,
plant?
yes, all the
All the
town side
houses.
as well as in operation, yeah. But there was one for 2 or 3 months there. The West Kootenai had I forget how many miles it was, quite a few miles of line down coming over from Greenwood. It had collapsed with ice. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And like a bunch of dominoes, with one tower would go down, pull the rest all down. It wasn't. No, it was quite a lot of it. I remember 3 miles of it was pulled down, but there was 2 or 3 months getting that back in shape in the middle of the winter. And we supplied Princeton and Headley and great places during that time. But we didn't notice much on our road. Little road they had on here then. There was no sawmill here then running with power, you see. Just the towns. Well, we supplied the Colonial Exploration, the mine there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the little mascot,
That's in Headley.
I forget how long it was pretty near 3 months I think we had that on.
It was nearly all winter.
It was during the winter, long winter that winter too. I forget what year that was. That was before Eastcott came.
Wasn't it?
No, the town load was only a flea bite compared to the Cotton Mountain, the mine and the mill. You see, they're putting through 6,000 tons a day there then too, you know, to finish.
It's a lot.
Yeah, 6,000 tons or more. We're only putting through about twice that much here at this mine here.
Right.
Yeah. And I know it was pretty good for those days.
Yes. Things weren't on the big scale they are now. They weren't on the big scale.
No. I remember one time, something sticks in my memory, the time that Red Jostin, he was a cat driver. He used to run the cat down the plant quite a lot, pushing our coal around. We're unloading Alberta cars coming in there, we unload them and pushing to a pile and so on and so on. Did a lot of work around it. And he also did work in the river for it, you know, moving ice and stuff. And one day I hadn't cleaned out the intake coming into the pond, the intake pond in the river, in the channel there. And I stopped him at a certain place. Don't go any further, Red, because that's quicksand there. And you get down there, you're in. That's all. And we'll get that we'll pump that out, you see, that sand down in there. So he pulled the cat out, and somebody came along, I won't mention their name, but somebody came along, and somebody above me, and told him to go in there further. So he went in 3 or 4 feet further, and he went down, out of sight. Because the veg got out all right. And the cat ran with the exhaust out of the water, the intake out of the water rather, until the intake got down to water level, and then he took water in the engine and stopped. The diesel was kept running all the time under the water then. And well, they're trying to get it out. They got the government cat here, a big TD-24, and another cat, I don't know who it was, some logger, and one from Mountain, and tried to pull this thing out, and they couldn't budge it. They broke cables, and it was down in that quicksand, and the suction was holding it, you know. Mm-hmm. And it was in the summertime. It wasn't in the early summer, but the water was still cold. That it was always cold, you know. And so finally, Tommy, you know, I mean, a carpenter boss around. He was in charge of all the cats, you see. Cloak, yeah. Come to me in the office. He said, "Jack," he said, "I'm up against it. I can't get that cat. Now, come on, give us a hand. Do it. I'll do whatever you want me to do." He said. I went down there. Well, I said, "You got to go ahead and get some purchase. You can't pull it with a straight cable. These winches on these hoists are too high a speed. You got to cut it down. You're going to have a 4 or 6 to 1 purchase on this thing. So you dig a big ditch back there on the island and let it put a tree down in there and chain around one and get a hold of some blocks and rig it up." So we spent the next day doing that. And I remember this. this man down here, Steve was sent to, he was on one of the government cats then, I think. And he had no idea, he gave it at full speed, you know, and bang would go the cable. And I told him, I said, Steve, I said, just take it tight and hold it there. Then make a cigarette, do something, then take a little more and hold it. Make another cigarette. I said, take your time. you gotta break that suction, you see. We finally got it out. But what I was thinking about was Ike Mullen. Ike, he's quite a swimmer, you know. And he was down about 10 feet down to where this, he's tired of his cat now, you know. And he dived down there and put on those great big slings around. You're down half a dozen times down to that thing. And they come up for air and then go down again, you know. And you had no snorkel business, all just straight. Ike was damn good. I mean, Frankie couldn't have got that out, because he was the one that rigged up there. Was going down deeper all the time, you know.
How long did it take you to get the cat out? One day?
Oh, yeah, I got out the next day, the second day. Yeah. It took about 2 or 3 hours, but once it got started moving, we put the strain on the cable, you see. We used a 41 purchase blocks there, and you see the cable going down, the tension going off, you know. And so now I can give it a little more, see? And then bring it tight again, and pretty soon it started going down. Give it some more, and pretty soon you can start moving the whole thing. It took about, once it started to move, we had out in about an hour after it started.
Where was that?
They say that you got to let it's in the sand, and the way I can get to it, and it's with a suction there.
Mm-hmm. Whereabouts was that? Up the river?
That was at the river, the power plant here, right?
Right
Our
by the
intakes.
power plant?
Right at the intakes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We took our water from the river, our intake pond. Oh, it's had fun with that river. I remember the time I fell in. It was way below zero. It was 25 below zero that night. We were stuck. We were short of water, and we were trying to break a channel in the ice to get some water coming from this side of the river to cross over. Eastcott was out there too, and 10 of us out there with bars and axes and everything else, you know. It was Nels Olson and all that gang. I think old man Wally Paul's dad, he died while we were there too after that. But and I had a shovel. I don't know what the hell I was throwing out. And to break a piece of ice off, I'd throw it back out of the way so leave more room for the water to come through or something. Anyway, I wanted to get across the other side, and one side of this little place we were cutting out there, and I didn't make it. I slipped and fell in overhead in this water. 24 below zero. They pulled me out at no time at all, getting me out, you know. But I thought I got over the two went with us across to the plant. It was only about 100 yards from there from where I was to the plant. The time I got into the plant, I couldn't bend my legs, my overalls were full side. Then they helped me up the stairs up to my office and get my wet, dirty clothes off. And Johnny, I phoned the house and told him to bring us some dry clothes out. And Johnny came out and he brought a bottle of whiskey with him. I'll never forget that.
The spot.
I never caught cold.
You didn't?
Never got a cold, no. But that was the middle of the winter. 24 below.
Oh.
I had some scares. One time number 1 boiler induced draft fans up in the roof, a great big, 10 feet in diameter, this great big induced draft fan built into the stack and driven by a chain drive from a motor. And there was a noise in there. We shut the boiler was down, it was cooled off. I'm going to go and inspect this fan, see what repairs it needed, and I crawled up through the breeching, up above the damper, climbed up into this fan. It was all soot and muck all over, but I got up into the fan through the intake and was climbing around inside this fan those several braces were broken, you see, and the fan started to move. Oh my God, somebody put the switch in. And now I'm going to be, chewed to pieces here, see?
Yeah.
Well, I jumped down, and how I got out past those braces, I jumped out and I fell down onto the damper down 10 feet below. The big damper was 12 feet long and about 4 feet wide, great big twist things, like a damper in a stovepipe, you know. And I didn't break any bone, but I got some nasty bruises and cuts. And I found that afterwards it was only my weight. I was climbing up this bloody thing in my own weight. Made it turn down. I did it myself, and I thought somebody put the switch in. Boy, but I was scared.
Yes. Mincemeat.
I know, but nowadays you wouldn't do that. You'd have someone posted right there at the opening,
Yeah.
you see.
Yeah, you would.
And I did have a tag on the switch. I put a tag on, you know. You know, put a tag on. Somebody working on the equipment, but sometimes people don't take a tag off, and they shouldn't.
Don't look.
But I had no time to think about that. I would get out of there. That was the fan of the breaching that the cold air came down and froze the boiler that time. That's the same thing. I remember a humorous part of the operation there one time. I was in town, and I went into Sorensen, had the watchmaker shop. He was a jeweler, Al Sorensen, that time. And he called me in from the door. Come on, he said, what do you know about electric clocks? I said, not any more than you do. Said, electric motor runs them, that's all. Synchronous motor. Well, he said, I've got an awful raft of them right here from Coppermouth and Allenby. They're all running, they say they're all losing. And I've cleaned them and I've oiled them. You can't oil them all, and some you can't get all into them. He said, I've done all I can to them. I try them out here and they run fine. They take them back up there and they come down again the next weekend. They come down, no damn good, still loses. You see? Mm-hmm. In town here, they run fine, but on there they wouldn't. Now, that was the time when I first was made, I guess I was made assistant chief that time. I guess I was Eastcott's assistant, yeah, when he first came there. Previous to that, I was on shift, you see. And when I was on shift, I had a good watch. The company would never buy a master clock. We had just an ordinary clock there, you see, electric clock. And it ran with our frequency. Well, I'd come on to work and the clock's 4 minutes slow. So I'd speed up the turbine, you see. Speed up the generators to bring the frequency up. When I'd go off shift, the clock right on the dot, you see. I come back next day and it'd be down 3 or 4 minutes slow again, you see. Then the other engineers weren't watching that, and they figured the little vibration trouble there with the machines, trouble with vibration, you see, and they figured the slower they ran, the quieter they ran, but I found the different. I used to think that they were better when they were faster and above frequency. I'd bring the frequency up, and when I went off shift, I went on to this other job, nobody would do that, you see, and you had the clocks every day, be down 4 minutes, 4 minutes.
Every day? Oh.
And in town here, the West Kootenai, because they're a utility, they're compelled by law to keep the frequency up, you see, on account of the electric clocks and things like that, electric equipment. Yeah. See, they're synchronous motors running the clocks, so they run with the speed of the frequency and in tune with the frequency. That was pretty good. It was kind of comical. Well, you couldn't do anything about it. I tried to get the company to buy a master clock. You see, all of the power places have them with a utility power. They're selling juice to the public. You have to have them. The law compels you to have them. And in fact, they're all automatic. They have them so that they even adjust the governor on the turbine. You see, even in the hydro plants, they're all adjusted by the master clock. When the master clock is set, checked by the time signal every 10 o'clock in the morning, every day, and we had nothing like that. I had an Admiral watch, and a damn good watch, kept good time, and I kept it. It goes to show you the difference in men, you see. There wasn't anybody else there to give a damn about that.
No.
You see, I did.
You kept it right.
Yeah, but it was a hard fight all the time. We had that old equipment, second-hand stuff was obsolete. Henry Ford threw away those 2 generators. You see, we got them. The only way, bought them second-hand from Windsor, you see, Windsor, Ontario. He put in something more modern, more efficient, and bigger, of course. The only thing we had there was the boilers. The number 2 and 3 boilers were both efficient boilers. They were as good as half today, as a matter of fact. That size.
Yeah.
84% efficiency, those 2 boilers. 84%. I mean, we maintained it too. Oh, sometimes we'll lapse a little when we have things go wrong, but we get things back in shape every time, but bring it up to 84% right along. They were modern type boilers, you see. But the turbines, they were obsolete.
Makes it pretty hard. It's all old equipment anywhere.
You see, our efficiency there never exceeded 17.5% total thermal efficiency overall. 17.5%. And I was through a plant in the old country when I was over this last time. It's under construction right now, and they're going to go as high as 52%. It's a nuclear.
3 times.
Nuclear plant, nuclear atomic energy. But even so, the thermal efficiency is, and most modern thermal plants are up around 45, 50, getting close to 50. Modern ones. You know, there's some different. 3 times. It was costing us 3 times for fuel what a modern plant would have cost us. For having, well, our turbine, you see, number 3 was at an 11-pound water rate. And there's some machines now 3.5 pounds. Higher pressure, higher temperature, you see. 3.5 pounds per kilowatt hour, you see. 3.5 pounds of water evaporated. The best we could do was about 11.
3 times again.
And then they had the temerity to try and sell that to Haiti, you know, sell the plant the way it was. They had me come in from Kamloops to give them a hand to figure out the cost of moving it and so on, and I was going to go, and they had me to go ahead and take it down to Haiti and rebuild it and so on. God.
Worn out twice.
17.5% efficiency.
Wouldn't last long.
They could put in a diesel-driven generator. Wouldn't cost as much to run as that, even though the coal would be cheap. Yes, I had to see it go down. I had to see it shut down. It could have run quite a bit longer if the Union had only, played ball. They just didn't. Well, the communist-dominated Union. You take Harvey Murphy. He was the head of the head push. He spent 2 years in Moscow being indoctrinated and how to go ahead and throw the monkey wrench into the industry in Canada. He and John Green both spent 2 years in Moscow. Christians.